Today's guest is Chris J. Reed, founder and global CEO of Black Marketing, the Singapore firm that has been running LinkedIn and personal branding for CEOs since 2013. 4 number 1 best-selling books, more recommendations than anyone else on the platform, and a mohawk you can spot from across the room. In 2016, he signed Black Marketing up as one of the foundation firms in the marketing group, a roll-up of independent agencies that floated on the Swedish Nasdaq. The share price went from €1 to 9 in under 2 months. So on paper, Chris is worth 67 million euros. But in reality, he couldn't sell a share. No cash was coming into the business. The group was not helping it grow. And he was laying people off while everyone congratulated him on the float. He was also going through a divorce, and that paper number went straight into the negotiation. So he's still paying for that today. Chris says the founders hiked it and sold their own shares. So one by one, all 18 firms in the group got out. It imploded. It was delisted, and the shares he eventually sold were worth less than he had sold his firm for. Today, we're talking about what it costs to sell your company for a number on a screen and what it takes to build the whole thing back. Chris, welcome to the pod.
Epic to be here, man.
Yeah. That's a hell of a fucking story to start us off. What at the beginning? What did the roll-up promise? Like bringing all these agencies into what kind of one foundation? Why did join?
I just started Black Marketing, as you said, in 2013. So I'd had 3 good years of we're making profit, we're making run, and then I got approached by one of the founders. He said, we're going to do a roll-up. We're going to basically roll up 4 companies to start off with. And then we're going to go on the Nasdaq in Sweden. I went, the Nasdaq in Sweden? There's a Nasdaq in Sweden? It's like, okay, whatever. Let's do that. And then there should have been red flags then, because it didn't say, let's go on the SGX in Singapore or the Hang Seng in Hong Kong or the ASX or somewhere else or in KL, where you are, Ben. He said the Nasdaq in Sweden. And I was like, that was immediately going, why not? So we had the 4 people do it, and he promised basically, scale, because everyone who basically does a roll up and says, we're going to buy you, says, we're going to help you scale. And obviously, as you know, Ben, as a founder, as a sole founder, I own 100% of the shares. I am responsible for the sales and marketing. There's me. But if I can have help from other people around the world, someone in North America, someone in Sydney, someone in Zurich, someone in Hong Kong, someone in KL, I can basically, suddenly go up from, what I'm doing now, 5-fold, 6-fold, 10-fold. And then you have a proper business. You don't just have a lifestyle business, you have a real business. And that's what they promise. They also promise synergies as well, which I think is important, Ben, because a lot of these people say, come together and you're on your own. But a lot of them say, we're going to have base synergies between the companies. And that was, basically, that's why I bought into it.
Time out, guys. Lots of you are watching. Lots of you are learning from the founder fuck-ups that we've all gone through. But please do me one little teeny favor and subscribe so that we can keep growing the channel and get more great founders on. Back to the episode. Yeah. So the scalability and I might be adding this in there, but I think because when I first started business, I was a solopreneur too, small agency, small team. I was quite lonely. I'm not going to lie. And when I merged my business with another company, having a co-founder and
Absolutely.
someone who's your peer, it matters, right?
Absolutely.
It feels good to be a part of a team.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, basically, so it's networking with those people, meeting those people, saying we have the same problems. How do we help each other? Are there economies of scale, for example, when it comes to things like resources and so forth? So, it is an attractive proposition.
Yeah. And so definitely felt right at the time. Did at any point, before we get into the exciting part of 1 to 9 euros, did at any point do you think it was too good to be true? Or were you just
you're being swept up on this suddenly. And, I changed my CEO. I'm normally the only CEO of the Mohawks. For a while there, I was the only CEO on Nasdaq with the Mohawks. And I would get such abuse on LinkedIn. People going, you're not on the Nasdaq. I'm going, look, I am. Look, I'm on the Nasdaq. It might be the Swedish Nasdaq. That's not my fault. It's still the fucking Nasdaq, though. So I was the only CEO on basically the Nasdaq. So basically, you're being swept up in this, and also, you are being promised wealth, and you're being promised this is how you reap the rewards of your journey so far. Because otherwise, you're just making profit, and you basically have to make profit next year. And you're waiting for a 10 times or 5 times or 3 times valuation for someone to buy you. Suddenly you've got shares And you go from like, suddenly having no value whatsoever, really, to someone saying you're now worth this. So I go, huh, I'm worth that? Oh, fuck it. Brilliant. Why would you say no? I mean, in hindsight, lots of people I met afterwards also said they did say no because of the fact it just sounded too good to be true. Which,
Yeah.
as we know, Ben, sometimes when it is too big to be true, it actually is too good to be true.
I think normally. And so you went down into the program, you got swept up in this in the excitement. The roll up came in. We list on the Swedish
And
Nasdaq.
we went over to Stockholm, Ben, and did it, ringing the
So you're
bell, the
there
whole
ringing the
thing. Oh, yeah,
bell.
fuck yeah. The
So it's the
whole
whole
situation.
journey. Yeah, it's the whole journey. It's the entrepreneur's dream. Like we're going to
Absolutely.
list our exit strategy, and rare in an agency to have that kind of. Normally it's a different type of business that will go down that path.
Correct.
Um, so you're like swept up in all this. Then the share price is €1. Boom! It goes to 9. How did that feel at the time?
Amazing, because we were literally buying companies left, right, and center. Because what the founders were doing, they were using the hype share price to basically then buy a company, so which would then hype the share price. Some people, have said this is a Ponzi scheme. I will leave you to determine whether you think it's a Ponzi scheme or not. But if you announce that you buy somebody, your share price goes up, and then you get that share price, then allows you to go to somebody else and say, "Oh, do you want to be bought?" And now basically you have to give less shares out to have the same value. So by
Yeah,
the time they did the 18th company at $9, people were being bought for 9 times, kind of like, sorry, the valuation, the amount of shares being used was 9 times
yeah, yeah,
less than
yeah,
they gave me and the other three founders, the original founders, which obviously is very attractive. If basically you're already using 1,000 shares, say, rather than 10,000 shares, you can buy more companies without actually having to reveal more shares. But yeah, of course, what that does is it creates you have to keep on buying companies. So that's why we got up to 18 companies within 3 years.
yeah. And then eventually, and we'll talk about how that kind of collapsed later. But when you were looking at that number, right, and you're owning a percentage of a $250 million business, your worth, well, what did we say it was?
67 million euros I was worth. I had 25% of the shares.
And it's a
Basically,
public,
it's a public listed
yeah,
company. So you'll literally look at this going, in 9 months' time, I can sell this and just basically go and buy
yeah.
Newcastle United or something, or become Metallica or something, or just follow Metallica around the world forever and ever and ever and ever, buying all the
Yeah,
VIP tickets forever and ever and ever and ever. And you're literally, all these things go through your mind, but of course it's not real because it's paper.
yeah,
And anyone who will tell you it's been bought or listed, most of them, I've met a few who basically that wasn't the case. Most of them said you can't sell the shares. So I was not by any way unusual situation to not sell the shares. The problem is that some people within the group, i.e. the two founders, could sell the shares. And so that
right,
created an imbalance in terms of they were reaping rewards, but we were not reaping rewards of the four founders
yeah,
and became 6, 8, 10, up to 18.
yeah. And you didn't make any. I hope you didn't make any mistakes like borrowing money versus the share amount,
I
or
tried. And that was
oh,
that
you
could have been
tried.
it could have been. No, but you're dead right, because I was in a situation, especially going through my divorce. I was going to basically
Liquid.
banks in Singapore going, look, I'm worth $67 million. Can't you give me a loan of a couple of $1 million on the back of it? And wisely, Ben, and again, this should have been a fucking red flag as well. None of them said it was a substantial company. And I'm going, but why? It's on the Nasdaq. Surely it's a substantial company. It's been checked. It's been audited. All these things happening. And the fact that nobody, and I'm talking 10 banks I went to, small, big, medium, little ones, all said no. That should have been a giant red flag. Hang on a minute, what the fuck's going on here? And they wouldn't, so I couldn't reap the reward. I mean, in hindsight, that's a benefit, because otherwise I would have been owing millions of dollars, which I could not pay back because the
You're
share price would have
bankrupt.
been
Yeah,
below.
yeah, yeah. You'd have been totally
I mean,
bankrupt
totally
if they.
fucked. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally fucked.
yeah, yeah. Man, I think that is a huge red flag. We've all watched the movie when what's it called, the
Wall
TV show
Street.
where Jared Leto walks into the bank. We crashed. Walks into
We
the
press.
bank. I want a loan. And he goes, we can give you 30,000. He goes, I would like a few $1 million. Google me. I'm not sure if you've watched that. I love that clip so much. I love that becomes me one day. It won't, but Amazing. So 67 million on paper. We're paper millionaire. You've got all these dreams. You're pumped. You're excited. Then you're going to the banks. They're saying, sorry, mate, fuck off. We're not going to give you any money. We don't think it's legit. You're still probably a bit defensive because you're like, well, no, it is
Oh,
legit because you believe in the
because
project.
I can
And
see
if
a
you,
share price. I can see a share price
yeah,
listed on the Nasdaq. I can see it's
yeah,
real because look, I can look at it every day and see it go up and down. It's like,
yeah. So like you're like, this is legit.
yeah,
Um, but also within the actual business, the business hadn't grown. You hadn't got what you had been swept up in. So
correct.
now we actually, and you're probably let's be honest, your eye's probably not on the ball because you're like
Of course.
pumped.
I'm worth 67 million euros for fuck's
Yeah,
sake.
why am I
I'm
doing
in
a
Sweden
2K
drinking
deal?
champagne, they're ringing bells, on yachts and stuff like this, going to VIP parties. So I'm thinking I'm worth 67 million fucking euros. Meanwhile, back at the ranks, kind of my team are based, losing clients. They're thinking, well, Chris is a millionaire now. No, he didn't try anymore. I was laying people off as I was ringing the bell. That's how
Yeah,
bad it was because basically I didn't have enough money to basically enough clients to come in because I thought, like you said, probably my arse was the ball going. Well, I'm worth 67 million euros now. In basically 6 months' time or a year's time, I can just basically, give it to somebody else and walk away and just follow my target for the rest of my life or do something else.
yeah,
So you do by very nature. I mean, I challenge anyone not to be, swept away in the dream of like, well, you could like retiring at that age when I was like mid 40s or whatever it was. Basically is, not retiring, but I even said to one of my friends at the time, he said, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to invest lots of other companies. I'm going to become a serial investor. I'm going to help people. I'm going to travel the world, telling people how great I am and telling, all this fucking bullshit. It's like,
dream.
none of that happened.
Yeah, yeah. Egg on the fucking face.
Just a
So
bit.
yeah, definitely that. So I guess a lot of it is like your motivation to work on the current problems within the agency and the clients that you were serving had basically completely vanished.
It didn't
Uh,
completely vanish because obviously I still had to make sure that we hit certain numbers to get more shares. They're very clever. The founders were going, well, if you want more shares, because, it's doing so well at the moment, you can basically get more shares at a discount, Chris, as well, if you keep bringing the numbers in. And so you're going, okay, fuck it, let's streamline the company, let's win more clients, let's try and
yeah,
get synergies. And that's when I realized the synergies didn't work, Ben, because I was going to the other companies going, okay, we're part of the same group now. Do you want to buy our services? Do you know anyone who wants to buy our services? They're, no. We're B2C, you're B2B. You're like, well, we do B2C marketing, you're B2B marketing. I was like, well, you don't have any B2B clients? No, we're a B2C brand. I go, okay. Well, where's my synergies? Well, I'm looking around going, where's the fuck's the synergies? There's no
yeah,
synergies. And so suddenly, basically, you don't have the opportunity to grow within the group because they've got their synergies. So then you're kind
yeah,
of like, and then you're trying to literally go back to what you were doing before in basically, I travel the world trying to find clients, using LinkedIn to find clients, which is fine and everything. But I thought I'd kind of moved up a step from that. And I
yeah,
hadn't in reality, 6 to 8 months later, when I'm basically struggling, I got cash flow issues, I'm going through this stupid divorce, trying to battle with the share price and the divorce at the same time. It's like my ex-wife basically said, well, according to Nasdaq, you're worth 67 million euros. I want, $10 million worth of shares. And I kid you not, in my divorce, my first draft of that divorce, it said, and Chris Reed will basically pay this ex-wife like $10 million. And it's just like becomes an unreal thing. I mean, luckily for me, I didn't sign that because the share price then started doing that.
yeah,
And then I was able to go back and show them the share price got now renegotiated, but it still started at an artificial level. Because had I not done that, it would have started at a much lower level because I'm an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs, as you know, Ben, only pay themselves what they can afford. I didn't get a salary. I still don't get a salary. I get what I kill. So
yeah,
basically that inflated the amount of worth that someone in Singapore, because I was a floated company from Singapore, I'd sold the Singapore company, I had to go to a Singapore court, and basically she could use that against me. So it was the worst timing of all time when it comes to that. But even then, I didn't really think it mattered that much because I thought, well, I had 10 million out of 67 million, fine, at least it's kind of done. But then,
you can manage on
that's a nightmare.
57.
Precisely.
Yeah, 57 million. That's enough for me. You can
Only 57 million euros, yes.
have your 10 million euros. No problem, girl. As long as you leave me the fuck alone. And so
Basically.
Yeah, how did this valuation start to become so expensive? Because I mean, that's just one part of it. I imagine,
So
like
basically,
you
them
would
are
want
hyping the
lifestyle
shares.
changes.
Yeah, because them are hyping the shares. So they were hyping the
Yeah,
shares by buying companies, announcing it, and in some cases, Ben, they were announcing it before the deal had actually gone through. So basically, that is a typical,
that's
I don't
illegal.
know. It's well, yeah, precisely. So they got wrapped by Nasdaq for doing it after the case, which of course made a difference. But I'll tell you where it came home, Ben. I was in Sydney, and I was
Yeah,
meeting by pure chance two companies, which I won't name, who'd been approached by TMZ to be bought, and not only approached, they'd announced it. They'd announced on the Nasdaq that they bought these two companies. So there I am in Sydney in the Shangri-La. I remember it crystal clear. It was 10 years ago. And I met the founder of these two agencies. I said, welcome, we're part of the same company now. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, we just announced on Nasdaq that we just bought you guys. And they went, no, you haven't. I said, what do you mean you haven't? Well, I just said I was interested in talking. Huh? You said you were interested in talking? And that's what
wow.
they showed me the email saying, yes, I'm interested in talking to you. And the founders had took that as being, well, we bought them, then we can announce it on Nasdaq. And the share price went up. But of course, as soon as that didn't happen, and of course it didn't happen because those guys were then going, well, you've announced it. So now I can charge you 10 times more than I was going to because you announced it. You've got no ball to play. We've got all the balls to play because I haven't signed a thing. So
Yeah,
literally, when they had to announce those two deals did not happen, that's
yeah,
when the share price started going down. And then everyone started looking at the numbers, and everyone started looking at the lack of growth, and everyone started looking at the companies, and that's when the share price really started plummeting. And then people started leaving, and that exacerbated they basically the share price plummeting down, and that was a nightmare because then it was basically as quick as it went up, it went down like just as quick,
goes
if not
down.
quicker.
Yeah, yeah. When did you kind of realize, because obviously this is a pretty massive red flag. Like you're sat
Yes.
in the Shangri-La, as you say, with these two founders,
In
and you're like, hang
Sydney.
on a minute. There's a lot of, and I feel like the Shangri-La is the 67 million on paper move Chris J. Reed is following. Mr. Mohawk is like, hey, I'm worth 60 million. Let's go and hang out at the Shangri-La, baby. Um, but when did you realize the founders had started to perhaps cash out? Like, because you mentioned way at the beginning,
Because we could see basically that they were, because obviously it's public. So you could
yeah,
see when people were selling shares, and me and the other family were going, why are you
this
selling
guy.
shares and we're not allowed to sell shares, kind of thing. So then some people were allowed to sell some shares to basically pay off partners or debts or whatever it is, in a small amount of way. So it's totally controlled by them. But in respect, so I'll give you an example how this manifested itself. And about the second year, when I'd given some shares to my ex-wife started selling the shares. So basically, so after this basically, we had still a moratorium. We couldn't sell the shares, and then she started selling them. And obviously, that's on Nasdaq. So I remember taking my son to go and see Star Wars. I came out the cinema to like 19 different missed calls from one of the founders, who then called me and said, we're going to report you to the police. We're going to report you to insider dealing. We're going to report you this, like that, because you're selling shares. I say, I'm not selling shares. My ex-wife is selling shares. I couldn't control my ex-wife when I was
He
married to
owns
her. I certainly can't control her now I'm fucking divorced from her. But basically,
them.
she was selling shares. They were threatening. They were literally threatening me left, right, and center with this, that, and the other. I mean, it was all bullshit because obviously they were doing the same thing. But effectively, she was basically selling the shares to obviously reap the reward. So I had to go to her and say, stop selling the shares, because otherwise I'm going to be put in prison, kind of thing.
Did she stop?
Yes.
How much money
Which
did
she
she make?
regrets, to this day.
Yeah, I would regret too. How much did she end up selling?
Oh, yeah, very, very, very small amounts, a couple of 100,000.
Okay, but still, so it sounds like she got the most money out of the deal.
No, I mean, like, but she could have sold millions. I mean, if she was, in hindsight, she
She
could have
made
sold millions, got a good lawyer, and she would have been fine.
Did you negotiate? Did you renegotiate with her? Hey, you got a couple of $100,000. I got nothing. Like that, you owe me money,
Well,
girl.
it was just because it comes up. I mean, people, you can't sell shares unless you're doing it through blind trust or whatever without it being notified to the Nasdaq. That's so it basically works both ways. You can see what other people are doing, but they can also see what you're doing as well. You just couldn't sell the shares.
When they started to threaten you and things like that. And obviously, it's a public listed company. She could legally sell her shares. There, she's allowed. Do you start to feel like what the fuck's going on?
Well, yeah, obviously, because obviously we had a contract which says I couldn't sell the shares. We didn't say I can't basically get my ex-wife to sell them in a divorce. I even said to them, look, the Singapore courts told me to move the shares to her. I'm literally powerless to do. We go and sue the Singapore courts. I've nothing to do with me. It's like, but so it's a grey area because basically it wasn't as if I colluded and went, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the shares and you sell them and we'll split the profits. I have to do it because the court had told me to do it. I don't think I'd want to do it if I hadn't fucking wanted to do it, but I had to do it because basically that was the law. But obviously
Yeah,
that was a red flag. So all these are kind of red flags going on. At the same time, so basically then the share price is plummeting down. And then basically the shareholders are basically going, what the fuck's going on? And the two founders, after I think it was about 18 months or 2 years, were kind of booted out. They left with probably lots of money. Probably sold all their shares, whatever. They brought in a new management team who were going to basically, make the marketing group great again, to coin a phrase. And basically, they were just these bean counters came in, and it got worse because they basically just kept on saying, well, you need to be contributing more, you need to be taking out more, you need to be doing more. And it just wasn't the same company I'd bought, or the promises had all gone. The money, basically, the share price was now below €1. So I was
yeah,
now worth less than basically they'd bought me. I still couldn't sell the shares. You still need to basically get permission from the company to sell the shares. There's still windows when you can sell the shares because obviously you have insider knowledge. So you can't sell shares, I think it's the month before you announce your results. You can't do it from straight afterwards. There's lots of rules and regulations that people don't realize. And I certainly didn't fucking realize about when you can and when you can't do it. We got lots of missives every month about when you can, when you can't sell. And you basically have no control on the shares, which I didn't realize. I just thought I could scrub the Nasdaq and basically sell all the shares, and you couldn't do that. You weren't, because I mean I can understand why. If I just gone to the market and sold $67 million worth of shares in one go, then obviously the
gone.
entire market's
Yeah,
going to plummet. And why is Chris Reed? He's a founder. Why is he sold? Why is 25% of the shares now changed hands? So
yeah.
basically, I can understand that. But we were in a situation where this point people were realizing, and they were pulling their companies out. And what they were doing, Ben, because we hadn't signed a non-compete, there were people basically who were founders who were just transferring clients from company A, which they bought, to company B.
So
And
they
then
just
going, well, I've
restructured.
left the company now. I've started this company over here with exactly the same clients and exactly the same way of doing things.
And if I understand, that's kind of how you survived as well, because you sold the Singapore company, but
Mine
you
was
had the
mine was more complicated because basically I'd sold the Singapore company, but I also had the Hong Kong company as well. And so basically, they threatened me several times. I had three CFOs to give this perspective. Three CFOs in a year. Three CFOs, each of whom threatened me in one way or the other, saying you're not doing this, you're not doing that. I'm going just bring another CFO. And I'd had legal advice that my contract wasn't worth the paper it was written on. So when they were threatening me, so other people were paying money to get out. So several companies basically, they paid like 100 grand to basically buy the brand back and start again. I'd had legal advice that said I didn't need to do that. So sure enough, basically I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to
wait, so
close
black
black
market.
marketing down and I'm going to
Yeah,
transfer all the clients over to black marketing Hong Kong. What are you going to do about it? And there wasn't a legal thing they could do about it. Plus, at this point, they were running out of money and the share price was like 20 cents. So, they had
yeah.
bigger problems to worry about. And they put out really nasty emails and a press release saying, well, we never wanted him anyway. It was like one of those people like, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend say, well, we never wanted his date anyway. Well, he's a terrible man, that kind of thing. And it's like, really? That shows a little class you actually have.
Yeah.
So basically every single client who was part of Black Marketing Singapore became a client of Black Marketing Hong Kong. Because obviously they weren't going to stay at the other company. And
Yeah.
basically, they were just going to transfer. They liked the service. They recommended the service.
They're
There
working
was
with
nowhere
you.
else to go.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was sort of a part survival, part strategy there, where you had the legal advice that, hey, we're going to, this is perfectly fine. But then it's also survival. Like, hey, my shares are worth nothing. The founders are fucked off. We've now got these employed bean counters who are just trying to, their job is to try and make something work out of this. And
Correct.
they've got an impossible mission. It's getting hostile.
Yep.
Let's get the fuck out. Let's rebuild. And beyond cutting the Singapore entity, was there anything else you had to cut? Like what did you have to do to kind of
We had to cut
rebuild?
staff. I mean, literally all the
Yeah.
staff that were employed by black marketing in Singapore, I had to cut half of them. And that's one of the reasons I started outsourcing to the Philippines and South Africa, because literally I had to get rid of the offices in Singapore because they were all tied to black marketing in Singapore. So literally
Yeah.
by closing that company down, I had to basically transfer everything over that I wanted to, but it allowed me to basically get rid of some people because we were too top heavy. Because I was building for expansion. I wasn't building for
Yeah.
staticness. So it meant that well, I can't afford these guys anymore. Therefore, basically, I don't have a company. The company's gone. Therefore, I'm firing you now. And I literally had to go around. I remember in the co-working space in Singapore going, "You're fired. You're fired. You're fired." No, there's no notice period. There's no money. Yeah, literally, there's
Yeah.
zero money. There's zero money in black marketing Singapore because by this time I'm moving all their clients to black marketing Hong Kong to even pay myself a salary. And don't forget, I'm still having to try and pay maintenance to my ex-wife as well by doing all this and renegotiating that contract as this is going on. So literally, I'm being fucked this way and fucked that way at the same time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it to
It- that
anybody.
was- yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend it either. So I mean that's tough in itself because you probably worked with these people, sold them the dream, and
Absolutely.
you go fire them, and firing people is an acquired taste. I don't think anybody enjoys to
No,
do it, and nobody enjoys to
no,
have it done to them. So that rebuild, you had to basically completely restructure Philippines, South Africa for resourcing. Obviously, you still had the brand because you're still black marketing now. So
correct.
at least, and you're a big part of that brand. That it's very
Correct.
because you're selling personal branding, and you are personal brand. You the moonwalk, right? So so did it take a while to get back to pre-acquisition like
Yeah, oh,
revenue?
absolutely. Absolutely. And the trouble was that if you Googled us, basically you got all this shit because people were throwing shit at me for leaving or whatever and blaming me for the share price going down. I mean, I was not in control of the share price at all as one of 18 companies. So, blaming one person because I was a scapegoat, because I was basically saying things about how badly managed it was and what a bunch of muppets there were. Basically, it's an easy thing to do. But the trouble is, if you were Googling me at the time, that's all that came up. So literally now it
Yeah.
doesn't exist now. You find it very hard. As I told you, it's very hard to find it now. But literally, I was getting all this shit saying, well, apparently your company's gone bust, or apparently this, apparently that. And I have to explain the whole black marketing Hong Kong, black marketing Singapore, Nasdaq. I mean, it's like, the amount of times I had to tell this fucking story was just like,
Yeah.
very, very stressful because even before selling someone our services, I have to explain why I still exist.
Yeah. And then like people will Google you and then it just changes. I imagine like people may not have ever told you it, but you would have lost
Correct.
deals for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. I've probably lost millions of dollars worth of business as a result of it. Yes.
Because, at the end of the day, especially in a service business, people buy from you because they know, like, and
Yep.
trust you.
Yep.
And if one Google removes trust, well, doesn't matter if I like you, I no
Correct.
longer trust you.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's just really, really difficult, really, really difficult. And so for a founder who's perhaps being offered a roll up, what is one question you think they should ask?
Is it real? Can you
Well, I'm assuming
substantiate?
yes.
Can you substantiate what you're selling? Where is the money coming from? What's the plan going forwards? When can I sell shares? What's the safety guards in terms of other people selling shares? What is the plan in terms of, buying other companies? What's the due diligence that's going to fucking happen before you fucking announce it? What kind of, established, experienced board members have you got? Because that's another problem. We have no established board members at all. We had a bunch of people who basically brought their friends into the boards. And of course, when the founders went, well, let's buy this company or let's announce this company, they went, yeah, let's do this. Because their share price was going up because they were all being paid in shares as well. So, of course, you had nobody on the board who went, hang on a minute, should we just think about this before we do this? And I'd say to people, be cautious and actually check out who the board is made out of first. Make sure you have some industry veterans on there. Make sure you have some CFOs on there. Make sure you have some financial people. Make sure you have people who are already millionaires who don't care whether the shares go up or down. Because that way they can be more independent of thought and go, well, actually, this is not a very good way of doing it. Make sure you have conservative people on there, not just gung ho people going, let's go for it. Because I think that's what we didn't have until it was too late. We brought in lots of CFOs and board directors like 3 years later, by which time it was all too late because the brand was tarnished Everyone was slagging us off in the marketing industry. I mean, it didn't help the two founders are going around going, we're bigger than WPP and we're going to buy more companies than anybody else, which you can find. And if you Google that, you can still find that on
Wow.
YouTube and on Google. They went around saying, we're bigger than WPP and we're bigger than DDB and we're bigger than, and I'm going, oh my God, and I'd have to face these people in Singapore going, your founders just said you're bigger than us, but we're worth $1 trillion and you're like worth 200 million. And I'm going,
Yeah.
well.
Red flags. Basically, what you're saying is, and because if I was to wrap this up a little bit, you got this opportunity that was so good, so amazing, too good to be true, that you ended up giving away blind trust because you had rosy tinted goggles on and you were so excited and it all felt legit because you literally went to Sweden, rang a fucking bell, went to the parties, felt amazing, saw a public listed evaluation of yourself. But all of that stopped you from doing what you've just said. Do your DD. Who's on the board? Who's running the business? Why are we running the business? What's the thesis behind it? Basically, all that logic stuff. So I guess the advice here is for anyone who gets an offer of any kind, whether it's too good to be true or not, just take 1-2 fucking steps back, remove your entrepreneur hat and put your banker hat on or your lawyer hat on or the people who just think it's going to be shit automatically would be probably the best lesson here.
I mean, what I should have done is, Ben, in retrospect, is basically go to a bank or go to someone who was in the know and say, this is a prospectus, this is what their plan is, what do you think? And they would have all gone, what the fuck are you doing? Run away now. Because other people did do that. I've met many, many people who were going to be part of TMG who turned it down because they just said it was too good to be true and it didn't stack up. And they basically, the red flags, but I think maybe they were more experienced, maybe they're less optimistic, they were less rose tinted glasses,
There's all sorts of reasons, but I think, seek advice from perhaps a bit more pessimistic, pragmatic people when we're overly optimistic.
Because as entrepreneurs, we have to be able to get up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it is good to have that devil's advocate in the room. Just ask, and if someone had said to you, you know what, great idea, Chris, love it. Why don't you just go and quickly check with a banker? Because this could be either absolutely incredible or a total shit show. And that advice would have been fantastic for you to have.
And also, Ben, in retrospect as well, I should have, it was only 3 years into the company and I should really have thought, well, if I'm going to be bored at this stage where I'm only worth this many millions, why won't I wait 2 years when I'm worth this many millions instead and actually wait? But I was too eager to base, because it is the marketing dream, it is entrepreneurial dream, sell the company and become rich and, go around the world watching Metallica, but, and investing in many companies and doing what you want. And that's the problem as well. You get overblown with, well, maybe it's my only chance. Maybe it's the only time it's going to happen. Whereas other people said, well, if you'd waited, then, we could do this roll up over here, as this roll up over here. Because at the time, it's not anymore, but at the time, there was lots of marketing roll ups going on, just at various stages, targeting different firms. So I really should have waited.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the pod and sharing your heck of a fucking journey. I hope the final divorce negotiations got better for you. And
still pay for it, because that's the other thing that people don't seem to realize is that these things have, what I call the domino effect, and that was used in my divorce and I had to renegotiate it and I renegotiated it, but it was still higher than other people because of this fact. So I'm still paying for it 10 years later. And I'll be paying for the next 10 years until my kids are basically over 21 because of that fatal mistake. So that's again why people should think twice before doing this kind of thing, because it goes beyond the immediate, gratification of becoming a millionaire and potentially has ramifications to things like divorce and other legal implications. And that's a reason why people should be more cautious than I was.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on the pod.